What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitmen. It's your host, Steven. I got Mondo Gonzales in the studio, ladies and gentlemen. This is a fanboy moment, and I've seen this gentleman's work in the past, and it's a blessing to have him on the show in the same room, electronically. But with all that said, folks, hey, listen, if it's your first time or you're returning, you want to subscribe, you want to support the show, you want to support the work that I do, head on over to YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, drop a comment about the things that we get into. Don't matter if you agree or you disagree. I want to hear everyone's point of view on all these things, and that's where I can directly engage with the audience. But hey, listen, we're not on just the video side of things. We are also on the audio platforms as well. You can check us out on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. But anywhere you can consume all your podcast content, that is where the show will be. Just type in the Biblical Hitman. While you're there, if you like the show, if you had a good time, you like the guest, whatever, you want to feel generous, just make sure you leave a 5-star review, hit that follow button, and hit the notification bell, because we are dropping episodes like crazy. And hey, listen, I just wanted to say thank you and just show my appreciation for everyone getting through the ad space. I know it sucks, but it is also one of the best places and one of the best things you can do to support the work that I do. But with all that said, Mondo, welcome to the show, man.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome, man. This is pretty cool. I've seen your work. I've seen you do some work with some of my friends in the same circle. And it's, again, I told you in the green room, it's a blessing to be sitting across from you here. And I can't wait to get into some of the things that we're going to touch on this episode. I know you got a short amount of time, but we're going to pack it all in. So folks, hang on and strap in. Real quick, man, for the people that may live under a rock and not are familiar, if they're not familiar with the work that you do, just tell us a little bit about yourself, briefly, and where they can support you the most.
Yeah, I was not raised a Christian, got saved at 18, and then went to school, and then ended up becoming a pastor for like 16 years. And then in that time, I got a master's degree in archaeology, so I've done a lot in that. And then, of course, I've loved astronomy, so we have the Psalm 19 project, which is an astrophotography observatory that we have, and sharing all the wonders of God's creation. It's pretty amazing what we can do. And then about 4 years ago, I came to Prophecy Watchers here in Oklahoma City, and so I've been here now since 2021. And of course, Prophecy Watchers preceded me, but they have a gigantic footprint, television and even radio and social media, you name it, magazines and stuff. So it's a real privilege to come and really just to be one of the Bible teachers and the content creators here, as well as sharing all the amazing things and keeping people updated on what's happening in the world, as we know is it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's keeping us on our toes for sure, with everything going on, man. And Prophecy Watchers is an organization. It's a channel that definitely it really gets a lot of truth out there. It definitely brings a lot of awareness to the biblical things, comparing it to the reality that we're in. It's just a lot of fun. I mean, right behind me, I've got a few books. You can't really see it, but definitely people can see that tinfoil hat right there, cooking an egg. But I've read a bunch of Tom Horn books, and I've had Ellen Marzulli on the show. It's really cool how much information these guys have covered, especially yourself as well, bringing a lot of awareness to things pertaining to prophecy. I would say prophecy is the thing that's the most fun about the Bible.
Yeah.
It just justifies how true it really is.
Yeah, no doubt. And when you get into, I mean, it's fun watching it, because I've been watching prophecy for 30 years, over 30 years now, and then just to see the developments. And so, again, most of my family, they're not believers, they're not saved, and so they kind of always will say, "Well, what do you do again?" And that it's not in their worldview, and so it's you always hope that it'll catch on, but I'm a very scientifically minded person and analytical. So you look out and you're like, look, we're not making this stuff. The Bible has objective facts about prophetic things, certainly as it relates to the first coming of Jesus. And then with the second coming, it's not any different. We take it pretty straightforward. And so it's an objective reality that we have approached and are entering in the end of the age. And so you look out and you go, wow, the Bible says this, and you look out and it's just check, check, check. I'm not saying the rapture's tomorrow or the second coming's tomorrow, but no doubt we have entered into the end of the age. Not only that, but I would say that you mentioned the fun things is being able to talk about Genesis 6 and Genesis 3:15 and the seed war and all the things that, again, LA's one of my best friends. We talk all the time, and all the things, Paracas skulls, elongated skulls. I mean, they're just fun. They're fun to discuss and to bring it back to the Bible as far as we can.
Yeah, no, no doubt. I mean, I think one of the coolest things when I was, in a way, coming out of the traditional theology pertaining to the Bible, right? I mean, Genesis 6 is something that's not really talked about in some churches. And it was such an intriguing topic that when you get down into the roots and the history of these things, I mean, even secular, right? Secular history, or even just people who are secular organizations, they are talking about giants. Giants are definitely a real thing. There's weird skulls, like you mentioned, and all that kind of stuff. It's something that brings the Bible more to life. It makes so much of the narrative come into it just connects a lot of different things, man. And so, with some of the content that you've been covering lately, I know I've seen you on shows get into the Red Heifer stuff,
Mhm.
get into Apophis, and these are topics that people may not really understand, just of pertaining to Revelation and pertaining to the book of Daniel and all these kind of things. How would you break these things down to people to get them to understand these things?
That's a great question because, I wrote a book. It was published in March of this year by Charisma House on the Red Heifers, and it really is the only book that's out there discussing very specifically the whole background, not only just the Red Heifers, but also the Third Temple movement and the trajectory of what Israel has done over the last, 77 years since its founding. And I start out, just again, what's the basics here? What are these five cows that came to Israel in September of 2022? What's their significance? And so the fact of the matter is, it is very significant. It shows us that we're dealing with topics that the Bible has said will happen. There will be a temple that is going to be rebuilt. We know it's there at the end of the age, whether we specifically see it or not. We'll again, depending on somebody's perspective about the rapture, but it doesn't matter whether you're pre, mid, whatever, pre-wrath, it doesn't matter. I guess if you're post-trib, you would see the rapture, or you would see the temple, but nevertheless, the Bible says clear that the temple is going to be rebuilt. And so when you see all these events now happening, within the movements of the religious movements of the nation of Israel, mostly the rabbis. And then, of course, you see five red heifers show up, which have been non-existent for 2,000 years. To me, I've been to say, hey, is this prophetic? And so I just go through, and I won't go through all of it here, but I just go through line by line in the sense of describing, look, this isn't make-believe. These are, again, objective facts. And this isn't something that was on the scene 80 years ago. It was theoretical. They had been, of course, the Jewish people ever since they got kicked out of the land in 70 AD and then ultimately in 135 AD at the Bar Kokhba revolt. They've always been in the land, little pieces here and there, but in a sense as a nation. Every year, this is what they talk about at Passover. Every year, no matter where they were scattered, was next year in Jerusalem, next year in Jerusalem. And they had longing to come back to Jerusalem and to rebuild the temple. And now here we are after all this time, and things are in motion. Everything is completed for the temple to be initiated. And the fact that we're discussing these things now, they weren't discussing the things in the year 1400 or 1600 or even 1800. And so it's clear that we have entered into a very interesting time where we can compare what the Bible says and what we're seeing in reality out in the world.
Yeah, no, no doubt. And one thing I've researched, and I've gone on shows talking about this, but it pertains to the Raelian cult, which is a cult that was kind of developed in the 1970s, but by a guy named Claude Vorion, and he was given this name Rael by these
Hmm.
entities, the Elohim they called themselves. But a big part of the whole narrative and the whole indoctrination that they were teaching Rael was basically we need which they kind of like almost seem like this galactic federation,
Hmm.
right? It's like these ascending masters that are of a higher level of consciousness and that show superiority over mankind and claim to be the creators of mankind as well. So they're trying to steal, God's glory with that. But they've also told him that, hey, we need an embassy built here on Earth before our return. And the one place that Rael was going to start in trying to go to governments, the first government he went to try and develop this embassy was Israel. And he
Hmm.
wanted to build the third temple because this is
Yeah.
how he was influenced to build this this foundation for for these entities. It's weird.
Well, it's amazing too. We had a conference here, one of our big conferences here last month in Norman, and I gave a couple presentations on the idea of the temple and the Jewish people and their current spiritual state, and then also into Daniel 9:27, which says quite clearly that the Antichrist will confirm the covenant, with the Jewish people for a period of 7 years, and just talking about that. But one of the things that I bring up in there is I say, look, if you take a snapshot or a character reference of the Antichrist and you just lay it all down, and I do this in an article. People can find it on prophecywatchers.com. I just have it really easy, prophecywatchers.com/Daniel 9. So, anyways, but one of the things that I did there was Jesus tells us in Matthew 24:15 that the key to understanding the abomination of desolation and that basically the second half of this tribulation period is the book of Daniel. He says, look, it's back there. It's already written. And so I just say, look, if you look at the abomination of desolation that happened historically in 167 BC with Antiochus Epiphanes, and you look at this guy and you compare him with the future Antichrist, especially in Daniel 11 others, you have this portrait. But I said, you know who wants the temple built more than the Jewish people? The Antichrist. And so, and they're like, and people are like, really? And I go, yes. Look, now why is that? Because we know that the portrait of the Antichrist is he's a blasphemer. I mean, it's Revelation 13, Daniel 7, you name it, 11. This guy has a big mouth. He's casting aspersions on God, the people in heaven, you name it. But if you're going to blaspheme God, what's the best place to do it? New York? No. You want to go to Israel. You want to go to the heart of Israel, which is Jerusalem. And the heart of Jerusalem is the Temple Mount. And the heart of the Temple Mount is the temple. And you want to go right in. And Jesus says the abomination is going to be in the holy place, And so the Antichrist he has a destiny in 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 4, that he's going to stand in the temple and he's going to declare himself to be God and he's going to blaspheme the God of heaven. And so you think, look, he has an agenda. If you're going to affront God, you want that temple to be built just so you can blaspheme it and you can desecrate it. And that's exactly what the Bible teaches. And so I think even more than the religious Jews is you have this guy out there, whether he's alive or not, that people can have their own opinions, but he has a destiny to do it. And so he's going to do everything he can to deceive the Jews into building that temple so he can simply come in and desecrate it.
Yeah, and I think he might be here. I don't know. I just get this weird vibe because when I was watching Prince Charles talk at COP26 back in 2021, he was kind of alluding to this figure, this leader, this man.
Yes.
He called it like an it, and then he said he. So
He
clearly
did. He said I tell people they're like, no, and I go, no, slow it down. He clearly says trillions at his disposal.
Yeah, like that expands more than the global GDP,
Yep.
which if you combine all the money together, that's basically what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he said it
yep.
upholds the most respect for all the global leaders. Like,
yep.
so wild, man.
Yeah. It's so I think in that sense, my gut feeling as well is that he's out there. He's in the shadows. We know that when he does appear at the beginning, he doesn't just come out as a dictator. That doesn't happen until the middle part of the 7 years. So, but when he arrives on the scene, he begins to consolidate his power. We know in Revelation 17 that the woman is riding the beast. So you have this harlot religion, this one world religion mentality, and he's going to be a part of that. The harlot is seeking to use him. And then in the midpoint, him and the 10 kings, that's a fun topic as well. They turn and burn her with fire because he's not interested in competing with any other religion. He is the religion, and because he's going to declare himself to be God. So, but when he arrives on the scene, he's crafty. He comes through intrigue. He comes through flattery. He comes through deceit. And so this guy, whoever he is, when he shows up, I think right now he could be out. I definitely think that if he is here, he's out there. He's not just some random guy hiding out in his basement. No, he's got position, he's got influence, but people don't know him as this future world leader at the time. And he's positioning himself to have that influence and consolidating his deception.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting, all of it, man. I mean, with your studies and the background, the things you cover, where are we at with the Third Temple? Is there any news on it? I mean, I know Trump has an Abraham Accords coin and this whole Abraham Accords thing, and he was you know, the Jews pretty much, the Jewish people gave, I think it was the Jewish Heritage
Mhm.
Foundation, you know, gave him the crown of to be the king of Israel or something like this.
Well, it's so it goes back to his first administration where, the embassy was moved there in December of 2017. And again, the law was passed under the Clinton administration back in the 90s. But the way that law was written, that every 6 months the president would have the freedom to postpone the movement of the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and every one of the presidents did that. But Trump came along and said, "Well, yeah, threaten World War III. All the Arabs are going to uprise." He goes, "I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway." And sure enough, all those threats never came to be. And so after that, what you saw in the rabbinic world, in the religious Jews world, is they quoted Isaiah chapter 45, which it's a very unusual passage where it calls Cyrus, this Persian king, it calls him the Messiah, and not the Messiah, but a Messiah, Mashiach. And so when they look at this, and what was his role? His role back then was to send the Jews back to the land and to rebuild their temple. And so they thought, oh, but Trump, he's fulfilling that role. So then in commemoration for that, they create this Trump coin, which has him on there. And it even mentions Cyrus, got a picture of Cyrus on there from archaeological artifacts. And so I did an interview with a guy yesterday from Israel about a different topic. And we were just talking about his perspective. He wasn't necessarily a religious Jew or anything. He goes, I'm center left. And I said, well, what's I kind of knew the answer, but I wanted him to say it. I said, what's the perception of Trump in Israel? He goes, oh man. He goes, he is adored. And I said, um, if he ran for prime minister, would he win? And he goes, he would win in a landslide. And so here you have Trump, as well as Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, who have come in to really promote and provide security for Israel. Of course, everybody loves Trump because he got the hostages back, the live hostages. I mean, that's huge. There's no way the previous administration if we were under Kamala, that would have happened. There's just no way. Everybody acknowledges that. But going back to the temple, see that all of this contributes to that. So from a rabbinic Jewish perspective, there's nothing that they have everything ready. You could go to the Temple Institute, you could see the menorahs there, all the implements are there, the vests are there, the priestly garments, everything is ready to go. They have stones already constructed in motion. They have the Levites, they got the music, everything you could imagine what is needed is already done. So what are they waiting for? Well, they're waiting for the political will to happen. And so what we're seeing right now, this is the most religious government in the history of Israel, which began in December of 2022. And so they have a very strong religious component that want sovereignty on the Temple Mount. Well, what's been holding it back? Well, it's been held back since 1967 when they took control. They had sovereignty in the Six-Day War, but then they immediately gave sovereignty over to the Waqf, the WAQF, which is an Jordanian Islamic religious group. And so, but since then, what you see now in the conversation, you mentioned the Abrahamic Accords. So it's been noted on record that the golden goose, so to speak, for the Abrahamic Accords is Saudi Arabia. And in Saudi Arabia, him and this guy I talked with yesterday, we talked a lot about Saudi Arabia and their business and everything else. And he's done a lot of business there as a Jew in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is turning under MBS, the sun. But what they've come out to say is, look, we don't care about the Temple Mount, Islam. Jerusalem's not even mentioned in the Quran, not even once. And so if Saudi Arabia becomes part of the Abrahamic Accords, they've said publicly that they would have really no issue with the temple being rebuilt because it's a Jewish site. So we're talking about earth-shattering changes to the political status quo here that could be happening. I see 2026 coming on. Again, Trump, he's barely been in a year, hasn't been in a year yet full. I think changes are coming in 2026. If they can get Saudi Arabia and many others to normalize relations, that could hasten the building of the temple very, very quickly.
One thing I find interesting with the Abraham Accords and the coin specifically, I'm a big symbolism guy. I think it's a language, and I think this is how they, at least the spirit world, kind of communicates through
Hmm.
the physical. It's a calling card, in my opinion, and it's a big scimitar sword, with a bunch of symbols in the back of it, starting with some sort of like digital ID system. It seems like it, or it could be quantum computing. It's something to do with. It's almost like looking at the layout of a microchip, and it's got a heart. Right, which could be body activity data. It's got, things that were given back in 2020. I won't say what those things are. It's got binary code, satellites, looks like space exploration. It shows a dove, which represents peace, and then it has Saturn all the way at the top of it. And also, there's a palm tree in there that is a phoenix palm tree, which then again that means rebirth of some
Hmm.
sort, which is on, halfway um, up the sword. But this kind of brings me back to when I was just starting out in this stuff with prophecy. I just got saved. It was 16 years ago. I was on YouTube, and I used to watch a lot of what's called the Prophecy Club.
Oh yeah,
And
I know
one
the
of the
prophecy
guys was
club.
giving one of his visions slash dreams of the tribulation, and that when he was going through this tribulation, a lot of the Christians were basically being forced to renounce their faith in Jesus Christ, and
Mm.
those who weren't renouncing their faith, they were getting, beheaded with these scimitar swords. And so I see a scimitar sword. Scimitar sword has a lot of links and correlation with Abrahamic religions and with that Islamic area out there. Especially when you look at the Shriners
Mhm.
also have a scimitar sword as one of their symbolisms. It's actually like crossing. It's all very interesting, man, and I think there's a lot of connections to it with the Red Heifer stuff being involved in all of this because I know they've even practiced it. They've run some mock sacrifices apparently, as I've heard with one of the guys on Tim Pool's show was talking about it. But what are your thoughts with the Red Heifer? How far are we out with this, and is it something that is on the move?
Absolutely. The main guy who has been the American, liaison has been Byron Stinson from the Bone Israel group. He's actually owns a trucking company. Very nice guy. I've met him many times, and he's from Texas, and he has a place in Bethlehem. So he loves Israel. He's done a lot for Israel, and he's the one that basically purchased the five red heifers and brought them over in connection with the Temple Institute and many of the rabbis there. And so you've had there's so much confusion. I mean, I hear this over and over. So, well, on July 1st, there was some video footage of a red heifer burning. There it is, and all of a sudden it was put out by an Israeli news magazine, and with no real context. And so everybody's freaking out. Well, then, right after that, I had reached out to Byron, and he called me. Boom, he called me on the phone. He said, "Mondo, I wanna give you the facts, because I know there's a lot of information, and I know that you're interested in this." Of course, he knows I wrote a book on it. And so the fact of the matter is, and there was a lot of misinformation as it relates to, was this a real ceremony or was this a practice ceremony? And the answer is yes. It's both because, well, how can a real ceremony be a practice ceremony? Well, what you have, and Christians don't always understand this. My undergrad was in Jewish studies, so I studied rabbinic theology, Jewish culture, communication, Hebrew, you name it. And so within the Jewish world, within the rabbinic world, they have two levels of authority. One is known as the Mishnah, which then extends into what is known as the Talmud, the Jewish tradition. Okay, the Jewish tradition appears in Matthew 15, Mark 7, and so Jesus often had some challenges with that because sometimes the tradition would void out the scripture. So for Jewish religious people, you have the Talmud and you have the Bible. Well, according to the Bible, there's no mention of exactly the location. It just says outside the camp, inside of the temple or the tabernacle in that regard. So this particular ceremony happened in Samaria, which is not in Jerusalem. But according to Jewish tradition, it has to happen on the Mount of Olives. I mean, like, and they will not bend on that. And so what Byron did is he told me, he goes, Mondo, we've had actually several practices. He goes, we've burned 3 or 4 cows. Those other ones were black cows. He said, but this one in Samaria was one of the 5 red that he brought over. And he said a priest was there, a Cohen was there. He determined that it was legit according to the Bible. And so they did the ceremony, they collected the ashes. And I said, well, Byron, I said, you know that the rabbis will not accept that unless it happens on the Mount of Olives. And he goes, yeah, I know. He goes, it was a practice ceremony, but it was a real ceremony according to the Bible. The Bible doesn't mention the Mount of Olives. It just mentions outside the camp. And of course, again, for Jewish people, the Mount of Olives has been locked into their writings. So, and there was a post today on Facebook by the Temple Institute. So it's been a few months since July 1st, so people can go to the Temple Institute Facebook page, and they finally put out some clarifications. And they said quite clearly, which is the same thing I've been saying, is that they said, because this ceremony did not happen on the Mount of Olives, it's invalid. And they will not, deviate from that. But what they did say was, hey, they're working on it. They said it was a practice ceremony. This is the first time they've said that. They claimed that the cow or that the red heifer was non-kosher. Byron would disagree with that. He told me, nope, Mondo, I gave the best one of all the 5. And they talked about as well that the other 4 are still in Shiloh. That are there. Of the 4 that are left, there's only 2 that are qualified. The other 2 have been disqualified, but they're going to put them in their breeding program. It's not going away. And so what you have right now at this moment is hypothetically, like Byron and his organization, they purchased property on the Mount of Olives. I mean, I have a map of it in my book. It's there. And so hypothetically, if they came out next week and said, we performed the ceremony on the Mount of Olives, I would not be surprised by that. So everything is kind of like moving in that direction. Again, 4 practice ceremonies, 1 with the red heifer. They got their property. I mean, they are not giving up, and they're moving forward because let me just say this in closing, in that hypothetically, they could build the temple tomorrow. Let's say they had the political permission, but they couldn't fully use it. They could do some things, but they can't fully use it until the red heifer ceremony is completed because they need the ashes, which will be mixed with water, according to the book of Numbers, chapter 19, which will then be used to sprinkle people and make them ritually pure, and then they can go in and do all the full functions of the temple. But it still could be built, and they've said that. They go, oh yeah, we could build it tomorrow. We just wouldn't be able to fully use it, and we're working on the red heifer to make sure that we can fulfill all of the commandments of God.
Gotcha. And so basically, like the red heifer ordeal is to reinstate the sacrificial process to atone for sins, right?
Correct, for them. Yep. They
For
can
them.
do, again, they can do some sacrifices according to the different prescriptions, because of course there's a lot of sacrifices in the Old Testament. But again, for a Jewish person, the greatest thing for them, the greatest authority for them is Moses. That hasn't changed. There is no Jesus in their mind. So for them, the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, and they're thinking, well, in order to honor God, and we have to follow the prescriptions that Moses gave, which is we have to build a temple again. I mean, this isn't complicated. We want to obey God. We need a temple. That's the story.
Right. And so do you think their purpose behind all of this is not so, do you think it's to follow God's commandments, or is it to usher in their God even that much quicker?
Well, there are several things on that. First and foremost, I think that their genuine interest is to obey God and to follow the commandments as they understand them. So most of the religious Jews have never opened the New Testament. If you ask them, they wouldn't know anything about the New Testament. They wouldn't. Most of them know nothing about the theology of the book of Hebrews, which they should. They know of Jesus as this false teacher, but they don't know anything about it. So they don't understand what we understand about the fulfillment of what God has done through Jesus, certainly on the cross, and then ripping the veil, from top to bottom in the Gospels. They know nothing of that. So in their mind, they've been wandering the nations, for 1800, 1900 years, and their goal is to get back to what they know, and that is the book of Exodus, all of the prescriptions there, the book of Leviticus, no doubt, for the temple. So their desire, I think, is in the right place, but they also have a hope. There's this underlying hope that if they can bring the temple back, in Hebrew you say that the redemption, the geula, it's this idea of the time of redemption where the world is going to be blessed. So in their mind, they live with that phrase, and they think, look, if we can bring the temple back, it'll be a house of prayer for all nations. And then the redemption will come, and then when the redemption comes, the Messiah shows up. So we look at that and we go, oh yeah, there's going to be a false Messiah showing up, and you're going to receive him, and he's going to deceive you. We know that the true Messiah, Jesus, of course, will come back at the end of this time of trouble. But they don't even think about a time of trouble. There's no time of trouble for them. They don't understand New Testament eschatology or prophecy. They just think, let's get the temple done because that's going to coincide with the arrival of the Messiah, and this is going to be great. The whole world will be blessed.
Right. The whole world's going to unite.
Mm-hmm.
The whole world's going to be balanced. Where I think that balance comes in is where all the religions come together. This is where it's like, hey, you guys had one view of it, that you guys had another view, and we all were looking at the same thing. So let's all worship this God that survives a fatal head wound, and now is who's able to make war with him. And plus, there's a false prophet involved, sending fire, down from the heavens, and there's a lot of occult practices going on. It almost reminds me back when Moses threw his staff, and through the power of God, and God's miracle, he changed the staff into a snake. But there were magi's, a part of Pharaoh's people, that also threw their staffs down, and they became snakes as well. There is an occult work behind all of this. I think even the Star of David shows a lot of occult symbolism pertaining to the four parts of creation: air, water, earth, and fire. If you mix all these things together, it does form that star. And then there is a balance, a part of that symbolism, where you have a triangle pointing up and a triangle pointing down. You merge these things two together, and then it also gives you a star. So I think there is going to be, I think the religion that's going to bring all of them together is some sort of occult foundation to it, and it's gonna blow out this kind of religion where you can be a god and you can do all these things. And I think technology is going to also play a role in this too.
Yeah, and there's going to be it'll be interesting, to I guess to conjecture at how that will work itself out, because again, as we mentioned, this harlot religion is going to be drunk with the blood of believers during this time, true believers in Jesus, and that's just during the first part of the 7-year period. And so it'll be interesting that the Jewish people, the religious Jews, they have kind of a tolerance for other ideas, because what I mean is I don't think that they're going to violate what in their mind they're following, the laws of Moses, but they're thinking, hey, we don't really care what's going on out there, because at the end of the day, when the Antichrist is, again, the beast is being, the harlot is riding, this religious system is riding him, and it's seeking to kill Christians. Well, the Jewish religious people are going to be like, we don't care about that. Kill as many Christians as you want. Why would we care? Because again, they have no love for Jesus, and in fact, many of the Orthodox groups today have no love for Christians at all. And so to them, that's not going to really bother them, because they're going to be so focused on getting their own little piece of the pie, in the sense of the temple, they're going to be fixated on that. So whatever this guy does in the background, he's going to be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what? We're bringing all these people in. Eventually, we're going to bring them in. The temple's going to be the house of all nations. It's going to be a house of prayer for God. And they're going to be like, okay, well, you do your thing over there. We're going to focus on this. And if you want to bring him in later, that's great. We'll bring him in, incorporate him, and he could. We know he's going to be flattering, deception, intrigue, and he's absolutely going to deceive them into thinking that he's on their bandwagon, and he's gonna make it possible for them to build it because he wants to defile it. But then secondly, he's gonna say, listen, we'll bring all of these other people, all these other confusion religions, we're gonna bring them in and we'll introduce them. And we'll bring him into the house of prayer for all nations. So I think we can conjecture a variety of ways of how this could work, and it's certainly feasible and very probable.
Yeah, yeah, and I almost have this thought, and I don't know how I don't know how accurate this is, but it's a scenario I've ran out, and I think there's something to it. You know, Jesus came here and sacrificed himself for mankind, and he died for us. And I also think that Satan's got something up his sleeve to do something very similar. And I think that with the temple being built, with the sacrificial process coming in to play with all of that, I think that Satan is also working on an idea to sacrifice himself for mankind. But instead of how when Jesus died and rose from the grave and then ascended into heaven, I think I think what Satan has up his sleeve is he's going to die, right? He's going to survive this fatal head wound,
Hmm.
but then he's going to bring heaven here. And I'm not talking about the heaven of the Bible, of course. I'm talking about this Shambhala, this idea of a mythological place that the Maitreya is the one that basically runs and controls this place, but he's going to bring heaven here. It's almost like when the term gnosis, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you bring this spiritual power here into this physical place, and I think that's something that he may have up his sleeve. What are your thoughts with with that kind of stuff?
Well, there's no doubt he is going to. Obviously, the dragon is the key behind this, and the dragon is the master and the root of all occultism. So, but he's also the master deceiver, and so we see in Revelation 13 several things. Number one, he's going to have his sidekick, the false prophet, who's going to be doing miracles. And we Second Thessalonians chapter 2, it says clear that when he comes with all power. I mean, that's exactly what it says in the Greek. So, no doubt that God is the only one with all power, but God is going to allow this, and there's going to be, in fact, because of people's love of lies and non-truth, God sends great delusion. And so there's no one greater than Satan deceiving and the dragon deceiving. So when he comes on the scene, he's slippery with his tongue. We know that from the beginning, right? Genesis 3. So he's real crafty. He's going to bring and be able to meld all these things together, all these occultic things, these symbols. It's going to be one, and it's going to be unity. He's going to have miracles to prove it. And then, as you said, I think no doubt he's a mimicker. He's an imitator. You have a false trinity in Revelation 13. You have, the dragon as the Father, you have the Antichrist as the Son, and you have the false prophet as the Holy Spirit. The Antichrist, I believe he is literally going to die. I think he's going to be literally resurrected because God allows it, not because Satan has the power in and of himself, but because God allows it. Because the language it says there in Revelation 13, it says it talks about this mortal wound as if it was mortal. But the same Greek construction appears in Revelation 5. The lamb as if it was slain. Well, we know the lamb really was literally slain, even though it's using that like or as, that simile type language. The same construction appears in Revelation 13, which is no surprise. So when all this happens and it really comes into the midpoint, all those things you described, Satan is kicked out of heaven in Revelation 12. He knows that his time is short. He's got 42 months, 1,260 days. It comes all down, and he's going to empower his figure. He had a 3.5 years the first time, but that was like a human element. Now he's going to be superhuman, being fully indwelt, I think, by the dragon in that regard. And it is unlimited power from this point forward. And of course, the mark of the beast and other things come along. But at that moment, the deception, we don't have the ability to even really conceive of the deception that is going to happen at that time. With miracles, you're trying to talk to somebody and you go, well, yeah, but he just did the miracle and called down fire from heaven. Um, it's just like I think the world is, with all the things that we're seeing right now, and if you take the restraining influence out, whatever that might be, people have a lot of opinions, but the world is going to be ripe for deception that is beyond what we can even imagine.
It's almost like as if it were even possible, it would deceive the very elect.
I think that's in the
You
Bible
know?
somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, you mentioned the dragon, and I mentioned earlier in the show Apophis, right? So,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts with these things in the heavens that they continuously are trying to condition us with that are approaching Earth? You've got Three Eye Atlas right now
Yep.
that's out there as well. Who knows what else is to pop up on the radar pertaining to propaganda and just media coverage of all these things? But, where do you see us with all those things?
Well, the it's interesting that I follow Avi Loeb every single day. I mean, I'm on his subscription list, so every time he publishes something, I'm watching it, and I find it interesting his role in all of this because I think in his heart, um, I don't think he believes that Three Atlas is anything other than natural. He's got his Loeb scale, 1 through 10, and he hasn't changed it lately, but he says, "Oh, it's a 4." 1 being completely natural, 10 being a mothership. So 4, that means he leans towards the natural side, but yet I think he is massively interested in the attention, and he's done the most out of anybody to keep the conversation going at what it possibly could be. Now, again, I love to speculate, and all he's guilty of is asking questions, so I don't fault him. But however, what I find is the absolute misinformation that people run with on social media. And we're living again in a time where most of the things I see are completely outlandish, they're sensational, but that's almost irrelevant. Um, what is happening is that people have come to conclusions based on social media. And so it's developing this hive mind, this mindset of supernatural things, alien motherships, etc. So even if Three Eye Atlas, we'll know more. Actually, probably the next week when some of the Mars reconnaissance photos are released that were taken in early October, but because the government shut down, we'll see. But December 19th is coming when it's the closest to the Earth. There's going to be some other pictures. I'm hoping to take some pictures with our observatory when it's at that point. Um, but so let's fast forward to March when it's out at Jupiter. Jupiter's we're gonna get some pictures from some of the things that are out there too. So let's fast forward a year. Oh well, it was a nothing burger. It doesn't matter. What has happened is irretrievable. The shaping of the conversation has made so many people run with all the sensationalism that now it's become expected. And so, in the big scheme of things, this is going to play right into Apophis, which is coming on April 13th, 2029. It's actually coming back again in March of 2036. And so, here in the next, 11 years, 10 years, you're going to have two approaches of Apophis, which, of course, there's a lot to talk about there. But the damage is being done right now as it relates to what we see in the heavens. No doubt Luke 21, the Revelation 8, lots of conversations about Jesus said clearly, men's heart failing them for fear of what's happening in the heavens. And so whether it's real, which I think a lot in the book of Revelation certainly is real, but even the propaganda that's taking place right now for deception and it's only getting worse every single day. That's what I find amazing.
Yeah, and I think that there's something too with these comets, these asteroids. I think that emperors and kings of the earth of ancient times that they've used these signs in the heavens to deify themselves in some sort of way as well. So I'm really keeping my eyes on that and seeing what our government and our kings of the earth today will use that for. Could you just real quick break us down with what is Apophis? Where do we get the name,
Mhm.
and what does it mean?
So Apophis was, it's an asteroid. It's about 1,100 feet tall, which is big. It's big. It was discovered in 2004. And originally they were like, whoa, the trajectory looks like it's going to hit Earth. And then, through some other fine tunements, at least officially, NASA has said, no, no worries. It did have another approach in 2013, but the big approach is going to be, again, 2029, where it's going to be coming really about 20,000 miles close, which, again, that's inside. We have geosynchronous satellites that are farther out than that. And so it's coming, the moon is 250,000 miles away. So less than 1/10 of the moon. So hypothetically, it could hit satellites, and any of those things could cause changes in its trajectory. So, you know, introduced Tom Horn. Tom Horn had a dream vision going way back. He wrote about this in his book Messenger and also in the book Wormwood, where he was crystal clear. I've interviewed him on this before. I know he's passed away now, but and he said quite clearly that he said the Lord revealed to him that Wormwood in Revelation chapter 8 is Apophis. And so Apophis is a name. People can look this up. Apophis is a name of the ancient god, chaos god in Egypt. And so, why they chose this, that's another question. But, obviously NASA has a way of doing that. But what I asked Tom is I said, okay, did the Lord reveal to you the timing? And at the interview, he didn't realize that it had a 2036 come back around. And so he said, no, the Lord never told me the time, but 2029 is when it's going to become close. Well, what's interesting is Neil deGrasse Tyson you can find clips of him very clearly talking about Apophis, and he describes that it coming in 2029, and if it comes through a specific keyhole, it's not supposed to hit. Remember, it's supposed to be close, but he says if it comes through a specific keyhole, that on its next approach in 2036, it absolutely will hit the Earth. Okay, but what Tom Horn has said in his books was that there were those of his contacts within NASA that said, no, it's going to hit in 2029. So, who do you believe here? But nevertheless, people are watching it. There's no way that they can deflect it at this time, but it'll be interesting to see how much this has come to play and whether the trajectory has remained the same. Because again, when you come through the solar system, Jupiter's huge, Saturn's huge. You have these giant gas planets, which their gravity, they absolutely change things. Now, most of that stuff is taken into consideration when you're doing, trajectory orbital work or predictions. That is true, but what the many of those astronomers and astrophysicists, again, even Neil deGrasse Tyson has said, look, there's no way you can guarantee. I mean, yeah, hypothetically, this is the range, but there's no way you can guarantee anything.
Wow, that's so wild, and just to kind of just bring a little history into it. Apophis, there's always been this war between that happened before the creation of Earth. It goes back to Marduk and Tiamat. It goes back to Ra and Apophis. It goes back to Baal and Yam. It goes back to all of these different cultures. They kind of talk about the same thing, and so real quick, how do we mix in what Wormwood is with biblical prophecy and how Apophis fits into this as well? Like as far as, the judgments and things.
Yeah, when you look at Revelation 8, you see a couple things happening there in these. These are the trumpet judgments. And one of them I saw a mountain, at something like a mountain coming out, and it comes down, and I saw something like a great torch. And so you think about a mountain being physical, that would be more akin to something like an asteroid, 1,000-foot asteroid. That maybe breaks up. And the reason why it's called wormwood is because wormwood means bitter. And so when this judgment comes into the heavens, it basically poisons all the water. And it embitters the water. And then later you have something like a torch, which something like a torch really seems like a comet in that that it's shining. Comets generally shine, especially when they're going around the sun and the sun is burning them off. Asteroids don't often shine like that. unless they are entering the Earth's atmosphere, and then it would be like a torch. So it just depends on what you have. But these are just some of the many judgments that you have where the sun goes dark, the moon turns blood red, all the stars in the heavens turn out. I mean, you think about the universe being dark. That's amazing to me. You have, as well as the sun getting hotter, burning. One of the bold judgments is burning people in Revelation 16. So what does that mean? Is it wouldn't go supernova, but is it going nova? And you have a variety of things that something happens. And I'll just say this, that at the end of the day, we know a lot about astronomy and physics, but let's not be arrogant. We know very little about what we could know. And so what I find fascinating is the arrogance of some of the physicists, including Avi Loeb and others, in that, this is 3I Atlas. What does that mean? This is the third interstellar object that has come through. That's it. So all of our understanding of astrophysics as it relates to interstellar objects is based on a sample of 3. I hope that would produce some level of humility and going, well, we don't know exactly how they fully work because this is only our third one and it's operating in some strange ways. So instead of necessarily calling it a mothership, could we just say, well, we have very little sample here. So anyways, but the book of Revelation is filled with astronomical objects. Again, as much as Jesus said, there's going to be so many things happening that people are going to be scared to death, literally their hearts failing them.
That's wild, man. It kind of seems like we're leading up to some of those times with all of that, man. Listen, hey, we this was a pretty awesome episode, man. I want to kind of close it in with a message that you can share with the audience, with the times that are upon us, and with all the chaos and the hecticness that's going on around us. If there's just something positive, you want to share with the audience, you could take a few minutes to do so, and then we'll get ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, I would just say that absolutely. My heart was a pastor for a long time, and God did not give us the book of Revelation to instill fear. That fear is what the enemy uses. And so, but he's giving these things. Jesus said clearly in the Gospels that he told us these things in advance so that we would know who he is. Isaiah 46, Isaiah 43, God is the one outside of time, and he tells us the end from the beginning in order to show that he alone is God. And so why has God told us these things? Again, we see two passages that I always discuss is Mark 13:37. Jesus is talking about all these events, including heavenly, astronomical, cosmic events. And he says, listen, what I say to you, I say to everybody, watch. Be watching, be awake, be ready for the Lord's return. And there are going to be those that aren't ready. And then the second thing is in Luke 19:13, he talks about that the master is going to go away and be delayed. And he says, but occupy until I come. And so we have our marching orders, but we're not to operate in fear or discouragement. We should have a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan. We don't know exactly when. Jesus said to occupy until he actually comes. And so I'm very much against date setting, but nevertheless, he told us to watch, which means there are things to watch for. And I really think that it began in 1948, and all the things that we're seeing now, we could go into a whole host of other things as it relates to prophetic developments that the Bible talks about. And so the thing in all this is just simply to be ready. I mean, there's a sense of urgency as well, because we don't know. Jesus said to be ready at all times, to be awake at all times. We all know friends and family who are not following Jesus, who don't know him. And so again, we could all die today too, but nevertheless, we're to be ready at all times. And the most important thing is, I think, we can be absolutely filled with confidence because you know what? Man, Jesus loves us. He died to solve our biggest problem, which is our sin problem. And through his death and resurrection, we can have eternal life. And so no matter what happens, we're with him. He's in control, and he's invited us to participate in sharing these truths with those around us. I feel I'm very grateful that the Lord has allowed me to live at this time. Because we get to watch and basically, like this podcast and all the things that we do, we're basically calling it play by play as we approach the end of the age. and we get to be God's instruments in calling people to him, again, to be saved through what Jesus has done and to be prepared for when that time finally arrives.
Yeah, right on, man. I had Spencer Smith on the show, and he kind of said the same thing. He's like, "Man, this is fun. This is fun." He's like, "The Bible's coming alive." He's like, "Look at what we're living through, and
Yep.
and just the things that we're able to call out, and we're able to watch these things, and to be able to voice the truth out there, and to get it out there as much as we can, to be vessels for God, and to, try and play in this big chess game of
Indeed.
of a battle between good and evil." He's like, "It's fun, and just let it live it out through you." And so that I really I understand that, and it's a big part of my lifestyle right now too, especially with the show, and especially building a community. Well, God's building it, around me, and everyone's coming together. It don't matter what kind of other theological beliefs you have. Salvation is something that is
Yep.
steadfast
Most
and that
important.
is
Yep.
is grounded in one thing. But there's a lot of other things that we can talk about that speculate within boundaries, if that
Mhm.
makes any sense. And to have these conversations so we can honestly prophesy in that kind of way. Not the fact that we're like prophets, but we're predicting things that are to happen.
Yep. We are a witness to God's message about the end times, and we could say, "Thus says the Lord," when we quote Scripture, because He's given us a lot to look at, and I'm just we're blessed. I think about in Matthew 13 when Jesus said the same thing about to the apostles. He said, "Look, many people desire to see what you see." And that was the arrival and the ministry of Jesus in his first coming. And they were blessed. And then in Luke 17, he tells them, well, you're not going to be here during the second, you're not going to be here for that. But we are that generation. And it is thrilling. It's a privilege. And there's not a single day that I'm in fear about any of it. To me, it brings excitement.
Yeah, man. So, hey, real quick, is there anything you've been working on that maybe you're on the brink of releasing, that maybe you can share with the audience and maybe get them hyped up to start to look forward to whatever things you have coming in the future?
Yeah, the latest thing right out of the gate is again I've been doing work on Daniel 9:27 and the covenant that there's a lot of discussions about the Abrahamic Accords, which we discuss. Is that a fulfillment? Is that what is that going to fulfill Daniel 9:27? Is Daniel 9:27 a peace agreement? And I don't think it is at all, and that's not the context. So I provide kind of a challenge, I guess, to the traditional viewpoint. Again, people can go to prophecywatchers.com/Daniel 9. You'll find it there. But then also, I just have a lot of articles there as well that we're talking about the temple. Some people say, "Oh, we're the temple." Well, I know the Bible says that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But so does that mean there's going to be no physical temple? Again, prophecywatchers.com/temple. So I try to make it real easy where people can see these articles and look, I'm a Bible teacher. I love the Bible. I get into the nitty gritty, Greek, Hebrew, you name it. It's fun. But to me, we have to understand the Bible accurately in order to have the right theology so that when we look out, I'm not worried that Trump is the Antichrist because he's bringing together the Abrahamic Accords. Because I don't think that the Antichrist does anything with a peace agreement at all. And so, now that might contribute to Ezekiel 38, and as it relates to Israel being quiet and dwelling securely. So I talk about those things, but I think at the end of the day, those are some of the things that we've been working on just to provide specificity and clarity as it relates to what the prophecies do say and what they don't say.
Gotcha, man. Right on. And real quick, man, before we go and I roll into the next segment, where can the folks, support you the most and find this content?
I would just, as always, we appreciate anybody's prayers. We know that we get a lot of attacks, there's no doubt. And but prophecywatchers.com is kind of the hub. We're all over the place. They can go there and see, and we have a strong presence again on social media and YouTube as well. And we just appreciate the prayers that people have for us and that we can keep going. And again, I love being able to talk with others like yourself and just continue to share the word and share the love and get the word out.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, thank you again. I appreciate you, brother. This was also just I gotta say this again. This was a fun opportunity, and I'm excited to hopefully work with you again in the future. This was the first, but not the last. But hey,
Amen.
listen, we're gonna get ready to go over into the next segment, everybody. Mondo Gonzales.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
buddy. Right. Biblical Hitman debrief. Mondo Gonzales, brother. Thank you for coming on the show. This was an awesome conversation. I had a lot of fun. We got into some great topics. Some people may have some disagreements with the episode, but that's okay. And everyone has their opinion, and I love that. That's the liberty of the free thinking that we've been given. But hey, listen, there's a lot too when it comes the with the red heifers. There's a lot too with what is going on in Israel. What even if it's something that's fabricated, even if it's something that is controlled, there still is something to it. And I really think that the chess pieces that are the heavy movers in this agenda to get this third temple built, this whole red heifer stuff, and with the heavenly signs that seem to be within a lot of propaganda. Okay, like I understand this all could be propaganda, but there is the conditioning that's taking place, that there is something above us that is on its way here. And I want to see what you folks think down in the comments, and I also want to see you guys light it up in the chat. What do you think about these things? What are your thoughts with the red heifer stuff? What are your thoughts with why these things are happening? I understand there's different views of eschatology, and I want to hear out everything, because I do want to understand every kind of scenario that could be played out pertaining to the different theologies of eschatology. But when we were getting into the third temple, it makes me constantly go back to, I really think that these people, these kings, these leaders of our world are doing psychedelic trips, and they're doing some sort of induced psilocybin or whatever drugs it is. I think this is a part of play, and they don't necessarily have to be the ones doing these things to open up their consciousness to go and have meetings with these ascending masters or these aliens, these entities, whatever fallen entities, we can put a label on them. That definitely, I think it's fallen angels. I think it's principalities. I think it's demons. I think it's a variety of tricksters out there. But anyways, I think that it could be possible the kings of this earth have their organizations that are in connection with these things. For example, there could be underground operations going on right now. We obviously know that the CIA is host of pretty much most of them. But with things like we've seen in the past with MK Ultra, with all of these operations that got disclosed through, FOIA documents or Freedom of Information Act, so that we can know about these things, they're using taxpayer money. They're using a lot of funding to go towards a lot of witchcraft, a lot of occult practices. I think there are organizations and groups that are witches, warlocks, remote viewers. I go on and on. It's the fact that you can even get just a group of new agers right now out of high school or out of the college area that would be like eating this stuff up like candy to go into work for the government to do these things. But anyways, I think these people are used as mules or some sort of pawns in the game to make connections with these entities, to retrieve and to to send information back and forth. And I think it's all a fallen angel agenda. I think all of it is fallen angel agenda. I think that that's what's influencing a lot of the things we see here on this earth. Now, I'm in no way an occultist whatsoever, but it's almost like as above, so below, where you can see that what's going on above has a connection with what's going on below. And I think that that is the reason why we see the movement and the agenda rolling through with the third temple, with the fact that the governments and the religions, how they're moving. Why is there so much ecumenicism going on, especially in the Christian church? Why are the Abrahamic religions along with you know Islam and Muslims, why are they starting to kind of come together? Why is the Hindus and the Buddhists and everyone, I mean, even with the Catholic Church, for example, these are all coming together. Everything's starting to migrate and move into one, and it's becoming one body. And with one body, you're going to have a one world government, currency, and religion. And I think those are the three foundations that will be what is going to operate this new world order. And I think that the new world order is not necessarily for you and me or for the blue collar or for just the people at the bottom of the pyramid here. I think the new world order is to use us for what the elite has as their plans. and I always go back to this. I always bring this up. Go watch this movie again, watch Elysium, and I definitely think this is what they want as a new world order. I think they want this because when you look at just what the Jays, for example, I got to use that word, you know what I'm saying? The Jays, for example, what their understanding is that they want to rule the world. They actually also believe that everything else that's outside of their heritage is to submit to them. So there's that going on, and I think this is called goyim or something like that. But they definitely want the right to rule, and they think it's their right that's been given to them by God, and a lot of this stuff is like Talmudic, and there's a lot of things with, Noah laws and all this kind of stuff. Well, you can just go ahead and look for yourself, just Google it, the Georgia Guidestones, and the understanding that there's a new set of kind of this is a new rule when it comes to these 10 commandments, as it seems like. There's and it's mostly organization. It's not morality like God's 10 commandments, where he's telling you basically what not to do and how to glorify him with your living in the physical world to uphold these laws. But now when you see the Georgia Guidestones, which is, Rosie Cross, Rosicrucian, who knows who the heck made it, but there's definitely a lot of play on words that show you who maybe was connected to it. Definitely think it was Rosicrucians, but it's an organization. There's a number one, there's a limited amount of people in this world that they need to maintain. And then from there, you've got, everyone united under one language, and even the rulers have to be kept in check. And so there's like, it's all structure and foundation of a system. And I think that system has something to do possibly with what the Bible talks about in Revelation, where there's this beast with 7 heads and 10 horns rising out of the ocean, out of the water. There's obviously a beast that comes out of the land. And then there's, another beast that is this Antichrist figure, takes a fatal head wound through the apotheosis ritual. There's a reincarnation. Something takes over this man, and it claims himself to be God. So, and then the idea that there's a temple involved with this, the idea that you've got to brand yourself to be a part of this beast and this system, this religion. You have to understand, at least what I think pertaining to the mark of the beast. I think it's a physical thing. I've felt it, and I just kind of like, this is arrogant of me, but I know it to be a physical thing, and I apologize for being arrogant, but that's just what my opinion is. I think it's a physical thing because the nature of Satan is physical. He mimics things of God, but he does things in a different way. He does things of this world rather than how God does things, where God is not of this world. His kingdom is not of this world. He has dominion over all of it. It's all his creation, yes, but he does things in a different way. Okay, where Satan's going to want you to take this mark to show your allegiance to him, to be one with him, but God wants you to have faith. God wants you to believe. God wants you to have faith in the truth. Blessed are those that believe and not see. And this was the time of Jesus. This was Jesus even saying this. So I think that's what's going on here. There's a lot playing out with the Red Heifer. The Red Heifer stuff is interesting. It goes back to, so the main concept of the Red Heifer is that it's unblemished. There is no spot to it. It's all red hair. And you've got people in Texas, you've got even people in Israel that are trying to raise these things and trying to bring these things into the world, and that they're trying to really see, you know, they're looking at these red heifers with magnifying glasses. Okay, like they're getting all up in the hair of these cows, literally almost counting every hair on them to see how pure they are, the redness of the hair and all of this, that that this is what's going to atone them for their sins, is that they're going to make these sacrifices, and that this sacrificial system is going to be brought back into reality. And in order for this to happen, the third temple has to be of something. It has to be something that is brought back into existence. And I think it's going on. I think definitely Trump is pushing for it. I think the government of the United States is pushing for it. I think the Zionists are pushing for it. I even think the Muslims are okay with it. I even think that they're going to share the importance of this thing at some point. The Temple Mount is occupied right now. The Temple Mount is occupied by, I forget what it's called, but drop it in the comments, everybody. What is it called that's on the Temple Mount right now? It's it has something to do with Islam, anyways. It's the Mecca. Is it the Mecca? I can't remember exactly what it is. Anyways, um, but that's there. There has to be, now that's probably got to get demolished. It's probably got to go. I can't see them building a third temple and it not that still being there. That, I don't know, that's kind of not making sense to me. Something has to do with that, and maybe there will be some sort of agreement in the future with the religions where everyone comes together and goes, yes, we need to build a third temple for the world. And if you take that in consideration, then you can understand why, or who's really running these things. And I think it's these entities. I think that they want an embassy. I think they want a home base here on this earth so that they can occupy it. I think this is why these entities are pushing this narrative, because they want the Antichrist to take it over one day. And who knows if the Antichrist has anything to do with the idea of an alien. We can look at the Catholic Church today, and even a lot of Tom Horn's writings and studies, especially going, and interviewing Jesuits and interviewing people of the Catholic Church and going to Mount Graham, where the Vatican has an observatory there, where you've got 3 individual telescopes that are looking into space. One of them is using a Lucifer device or Lucy device, whatever. It's probably evolutionized since when Tom Horn wrote about it in the early 2000s. But the fact that they need something to look for exoplanets, right? To look for deep space life forms. This is their objective with this, by the way. And they want to make a connection with these heavenly brothers. You've even got guys like, um, Guy Consolmagno, I think his name is, but he's a Jesuit priest. I think he's honestly like the PR guy, or he used to be, maybe. I don't know where he's at now. This stuff was written, probably 10, 15 years ago. But when he was even quoted of writing a book talking about space brothers and talking about that the idea of them coming here to evangelize us with their religion is not something that's too far-fetched, and that we may need to reconsider and reinterpret the Bible from their perspective. So let's just circle back around. Let's go back and try to investigate this, right? When we're investigating this, we need to understand and learn what the narrative is from these entities and what they're telling these contactees. These entities are constantly talking and sharing with these contactees, which basically are people going through these experiences, that they are teaching these people how to reinterpret the Bible. For example, and I'm sure people have seen me on shows talk about this, but I'm going to bring it up again, the Raelian cult. The main part of Rael's experience, aka Claude, right? He was told and in a way forced on how to reinterpret the Bible. Being someone in his position that is not saved, does not have the Spirit of God in him, which is why I think they also targeted this man. But they're using him to indoctrinate him with a totally inverted gospel, which Paul also warns us about, right? Don't, just, watch out for people sharing a different Jesus with you. And especially if it's an angel. And that's why I think these things are fallen angels, because if I take that scripture right there and I see the experiences people have with these entities, that if Paul's calling it an angel, and these people are going through the same experience that Paul is calling out is going to happen or could happen or was happening even in that time, it's showing you what the nature of these things are. They're sharing a different gospel with you. The Jesuit priests, who I believe are in contact with these things as well, whatever this galactic federation may be, but they're also they're telling them a different gospel, and this different gospel is a complete inversion and a reinterpretation of the Bible. It's not that they don't say, don't even read the Bible, get the Bible out of here. The Bible's just discard the whole entire thing. They're actually using it, which is the smart thing to do from a cunning serpent thief and a murderer, right? From this is why the devil is so good at deceiving things, because he uses the things of God. He not only blends in with the people of God, he blends in with the title of God, he blends in with the church, he blends in with the believers, he blends in with the theology, but he also slightly changes certain things. And when even it's almost like when you're building something, and if you don't wire the smallest little wire correctly on something that you're building, it's going to ruin the whole thing. And that's the devil's objective when it's coming to deception and infiltrating and indoctrinating and injecting himself into congregations of believers. This is what he's trying to do. He's trying to completely throw the whole thing off. I think it's all wrapped up in occultism. I think it's wrapped up in Eastern mysticism. I think it's wrapped up in this familiar spirit that is so-called, it claims itself to be Holy Spirit, according to the Gnostics. There's a false spirit out there that is in work in people. The Bible calls this out left and right. There is a familiar spirit that tries to mimic the Holy Spirit, but yet is completely inverted, but in a good way. It looks peaceful. It looks lovable. It looks agreeable. It's mystical. It's freeing. All those things are what the serpent preached in the garden. That's everything that the serpent came with Adam and Eve. I- And I think that Adam and Eve were steadfast in their beliefs. And I think that they were sticking to the truth, even though they did sin. I'm talking about religion right now. I'm talking about their belief system, not the fact that, hey, their works got them in trouble. But I think this brought Cain, it brought Cain down. I think Cain, since he had sin in his heart, he was gravitating towards this other religion, this other thing that was whispering in his ear, that was deceiving him. And the thing about deception is that you think it's true. It sounds so good. You're like, no way, dude. Like, this thing is $4.99, bro. The price tag says $8. Nah, dude, they're telling me it's $4.99, but the price tag is $8. The person's going to continuously go, no, but the clerk is telling me $4.99. So here, that's kind of like where I'm getting at with that. And I think that's what brought Cain down. I think Cain definitely spiraled out, and what he ended up happening. And I think the basis of this and the foundation of it is Gnosticism. And I think that when Antichrist comes, or even if, for other people with different eschatology, let's just say Satan is loosed again, right, to go and deceive the nations, the religion that's going to come and to try and bring the world together is a liberating religion. It's to liberate you from the demiurge. It's to liberate you from the chains of obedience. This spirit wants you to be free. The spirit wants you to be a god. The spirit wants you to not, and when I say the spirit, I'm talking about Antichrist spirit. The spirit wants you to not obey God. The spirit doesn't want you to believe in God. The spirit wants you to believe that you are God, that you can make your own decisions. There's no one else to be accountable for your actions, not even yourself. And that's crazy, but it's coming. It's not too far-fetched. It's right down the road. And as Christians and believers today, we've got to talk again. We got to speak out against this. And a lot of it is taking over the church, just from the church, man. I think that a lot of churches are lost. And that's just the truth. And honestly, that's like the nature of mankind. Mankind always is like steadfast on something, but then falls off and then goes back to the ancient worship of the serpent. You could see it with Moses and what happened with Mount Sinai and the tablets that he brought down, and that the people were worshiping the golden calf, and that he just got done telling them literally, do not go back to what was being done in Egypt. And I think that's why specifically God is so tough on us, because it keeps us in line. It keeps us walking the narrow road. And the fact that I think also what's going to come with this new religion is some sort of paganism. I don't know what to make of it, but I definitely know that I have to compare it to Babylon. Like, I have to compare it to ancient Babylon. It's literally called Mystery Babylon. There's a harlot that rides the beast. I mean, there's the Mystery Babylon has it's on her head. It's written on her head, Mystery Babylon the Great. Like, we have to understand what Babylon is, who ran Babylon, what was Babylon, what did it consist of, right? Nimrod, Semiramis, Tammuz. You had this false trinity that was going on, but then who did they worship? Like, who did Babylon worship? Babylon, I believe, worshipped Marduk. Now, some will argue with me. Some will say that Marduk is God, and that Tiamat, which is the dragon that Marduk fought against just before creation, that people will say that Marduk is God. But now my instincts are starting to tell me that Marduk is not God. But yet this is how Satan in the past, in the Babylonian period, when the Enuma Elish was getting written, which is the creation epic of Babylon, which I think will be completely, and if not exactly the same as what we will see in this new future religion. But they exalted, it's like Satan came in and hijacked the story to put himself in the position of God. And then he moved God into the position where Satan was. And that right there is the definition of Gnosticism. That is where, if you look at the theology of Christianity, you have God, Christ, creation, mankind. And the God of this world is Lucifer. But then you look at the theology of Gnosticism, and you have the Abraxas or the Pleroma, you have Sophia, you have creation, and then you have the God of this world, which is the demiurge. So it's a reversal role here. And I think that's what's going to lead to the great falling away, is this idea that people are actually going to think that this is God. I think people are going to think this is Christ. The New Agers call it the Christ. Just go listen to their meetings on Lucis Trust. Like, go listen to these New Agers. If you've got a good foundation of Christianity, I dare you to go listen to some of these meetings. You better pray before you do it. Go listen to some of these meetings and listen to how hellish, but yet how good this stuff sounds. It's going to bring everyone into a lie. And I think those that choose to believe the lie because they love not the truth, they will fall into this delusion, and God will seal them off because they decide not to love the truth. The truth is the Bible. We need to get grounded in the Bible. We need to know the Bible. We need to know our God. We need to know his voice. We are his sheep. And what's so interesting is that when I take that verse of the great falling away, and then, which is basically, there needs to be a falling away of the church before the man of sin is revealed. And then you have this concept of, if it were even possible, the very elect would be deceived. This only supports my idea that this is going to look like Christ, and people who claim to be Christians are going to fall into this because they think it's Christ. And this is Satan's plan. Satan has always tried to be God. And when he gets his chance, he's not going to screw it up. I'm telling you right now, he's not going to mess it up, because his plan is to try and bring in the believers in Jesus Christ, the one and only true God. And he's going to try, his main target audience is Christians. I'm going to say that right now. His main target audience is Christians. That is the truth of this. And you need to understand that you are under attack more than the guy who's an atheist, an agnostic, secular beliefs. The devil is not even worried about those people. The devil is more focused about coming to you and getting you to believe that he's God. And this is what's going to happen. And it don't matter what eschatological views you have. If Satan, because I've, obviously I try to bring in many different eschatological views, and some people pertain to the belief, or some people subscribe to the belief that we're in the little season. This is how he deceives the nations then. Like, this is how he's going to try and bring everyone in together to form a one world religion, one world government, and a one world system, all just reborn again. Okay. And this is what's going to go to war with God. Okay. I'll play both sides of this because I think it's important. I think it's important to run all these scenarios by us, because the just like God doesn't change, Satan doesn't change. Mystery religion kind of evolves, but it doesn't change, if that makes sense. It adapts. Okay, that's a better word. It adapts, and it changes labels. And that's how you bury information. That's how Satan continuously buries his nature and his presence in things, is he just constantly changes it. He adapts to the culture, adapts to the sayings, he adapts to the people. He knows the human condition way better than we do. And that's why I really have, and I don't want to mean this the wrong way. And Wendy, don't give me a hard time about this, but I respect Satan because of how cunning he is. And when you have respect for someone, you honestly, you stay arm's distance away, but you've got your eye locked in on them, because especially if they're cunning, if they're a liar, a pathological liar, or someone who is just, their nature is deception, you got to keep your eye on them. You have to stay fixed, because as soon as you take your eyes off, that's when the enemy moves. That's when the enemy does something. That's when he does something and gets away with it. And I think with where we're going, this is a part of the future. This is one thing we have to call out, recognize, and be watchmen for. And so we got into Apophis, we got into 3i Atlas, which is 3i Atlas, the third interstellar object that we've basically ran experiments on, or something that's kind of come in and out of the solar system. I believe so. I think maybe that's what interstellar means. I don't know. I'm not a physicist, and I just don't really care. But there's something to the conditioning that something's on the way. And please, everyone, drop it in the comments and drop it in the live chat if you're watching right now, because I want to get your take on this. What is this? Why is the world conditioning us for this idea? It's a scenario. There's something on its way here. There's something where people want to look up and understand that we're in an all forever expanding universe and all this kind of whatever. Okay. We think we know. All right. But the idea, the story, the narrative is that something's coming here. And with the name that they give these things, I think it holds a lot of value. 3i Atlas. I actually am kind of interested what Atlas is, and I'll try and look it up for everyone right now. But and I think this is a god of some sort. And I'm gonna look this up here. Is this a god? Drop it in the comments. So it's Atlas from Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, Atlas is a titan, condemned by Zeus to carry the heavens on his shoulders as punishment for fighting in the Titanochemy. The name Atlas may mean very enduring or suffering. He is associated with endurance and astronomy, and is credited with founding the field. So the family of this is basically breaks down to the son of the Titans, Clemen and Lepidus, and brother of Prometheus, father of Pleiades, and the nymph Calypso. Punishment is basically Zeus punished Atlas for fighting in a war against the gods. And role in myths is Atlas features in the myths of Hercules or Perseus, and Perseus, I'm sorry. Hercules tricked Atlas into retrieving golden apples guarded by the Hesperides, nymphs and daughters of Atlas. Perseus turned Atlas into a mountain range in northwest Africa and punishment for inhospitality. The symbolism is that Atlas is often depicted with carrying a celestial globe or the heavens. Some other attributes are known for his wisdom, mathematical ability, and skill in philosophy. He's credited with inventing the celestial sphere and astronomy. This almost kind of like makes me think of Hermes, makes me think of Thoth, maybe Hermes Trismegistus. Anyways, maybe there's some connection with a fallen angel here. But like I said earlier, this could, and hey, I'm going to throw this out here. This may kind of sound kind of crazy, but is this Revelation 12? And I want to hear what everyone's kind of thoughts are on this with Revelation 12. Is this something that happened before creation? Where in the timeline does Revelation 12 happen? Well, how I think about it is that it hasn't happened yet. This is a part of Revelation, and it's later in the timeline. I think this is when the devil, Satan, and his army of legion and the fallen angels are officially casted out of heaven, and they're casted to the earth. It's almost like the Avengers are coming, and when they get here, they're going to point up to the sky and they're going to say, Thanos is on his way here. We need to prepare. We need to come together. We need to gather the nations and go to war with this thing, this Thanos, this demiurge. That's a vibe that I get from it. And it's such a there's a lot of psychology behind this because there's reverse psychology with it, which I think there's a lot of that there just goes to show you who's really kind of running the narrative here is Satan with this. So this plays into, I think, with like the Anunnaki, the Planet X, Nibiru. You kind of catch on with what I'm getting to, with why it is they're conditioning us with this whole idea. It's very important, and it's something to really we have to break this down. And I really encourage everyone to let's go. Let's work on this. Do some research. Send it my way. Give me your thoughts. Shoot it in the live chat. Drop a comment. I want to hear your thoughts on this. We got to narrow this down and we got to figure this out together. And also, please just email me as well if there's any links or videos or whatever, because I know some people on the YouTube side of things, they'll try and drop videos or attachments, or they'll put some sort of link in the comments and it won't be there. It won't be able to populate. And in YouTube, you just are just a Mr. Magoo, you. But email me. I want to be able to get to the bottom of this. I want to be able to pick it apart with everybody. I think there's something to this. And if anything, this might be another research project that I decide to get into. And I want to be able to break this down and figure out what is the meta narrative with this whole thing. There is something to it. But hey, this was an awesome episode. I had a great time. I had a lot of fun. Mondo was a great time. Brother, thank you for coming on the show. You were able to share, uh, you know, just the wealth of information that you've provided to many people over the years, and sharing it on this show was a lot of fun. I got nothing but respect and love for you, man. Also, people, hey, listen, I want to, I don't know, I'm into this right now. I want to work on this. So if you're listening, let's go. Okay, shoot me an email, whatever. Let's start to figure this out, because there is a big meta narrative behind all this, and maybe it is something like Mondo was saying, where these could be signs in the heavens, and there's even the sign of the Son of Man. I also think that maybe the sign of the Son of Man is him actually coming on the clouds with power and great glory, and with the angels, and he's got a robe dipped in blood, and he's got a crown on and fire in his eyes. It's a Jesus you just don't want to mess with, boy. But this was a lot of fun. I had a great time. Please drop your thoughts down in the comments. I can't say it enough. And if you want to support the show on the video side of things, please just come on over, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified whenever we do post episodes. I'm trying to work on something that is ad free. Oh, that is ad free content, and we're 130 episodes in with this podcast. So I was messing around with Patreon today, and I'm trying to upload every episode that I've ever done. And if you could just understand the frustration and the tediousness of this, it's extremely demoralizing, and it's a mental punching bag to my head. So I'm trying to figure this out. I might just go back and do maybe the last 20 episodes that I've done and kind of start from there. Just let me know your thoughts with all that. I do want to be able to create an ad-free entertainment space for this channel. I understand the ads are rough, and I'm with you. I mean, what I do personally is, I mean, I listen to podcasts with ads all the time. I just hit that 15-second button, skip through it real quick, and it's really does not impact my life whatsoever. But some people it does, and I'm trying to figure something out for you folks, and I'm working on that. Just be patient with me, and give me your thoughts, give me your ideas of maybe is there something other than Patreon? Would you folks want me to do something on Spreaker? Because that's the host that I use for the podcast. Spreaker, it's got its own app. I could do things for members and ad-free content on there. The only thing is it just doesn't come with video. Maybe I should do something with membership stuff on YouTube, but then I don't really I'm not all about this stuff. It's just people are getting to me with the ads, and I got nothing but love for you. I do. I totally understand where everyone's coming from, but just want you to know I'm trying to work on something over here. So with all that, hey, listen, I'm not just on the video side of things. I'm on the audio. So come on over to the audio side. Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. I can only encourage people, if they like the show, they like what I get into, you want to listen to me more, just hit that follow button on any of those platforms or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Just smash that follow button, hit that notification bell, and also drop a 5-star review. It helps the show and it helps get it out there. I'm up against algorithms with any type of content, and as a content creator for just a year now, I think I'm coming up on the year. It's not a full year. I think November 30th is the year, folks. So we got to do something big. Maybe we'll do a live show or something like that. Also, we're coming up. I think this is gonna be episode 100. Episode 100, everybody! Bam, 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 bam! Let's go. We did it. 100 guest episodes was such a grind, but we did it. It's a lot of fun, and I'm glad to have Mondo on for the 100th episode. I'm excited about it, and it's just another achievement. We'll check it off the list, and we'll do something for it. I'll run a live, and I'll just have fun with the community over there, and I'll directly engage with you folks. But with all that said, I'm done chatting. I'm gonna go to sleep, or I'm not gonna go to sleep. I'm just gonna go hang out and do something else. I'm probably gonna edit and work on the podcast. That's all I do. It's my lifestyle. It's who I am. But hey, much love to you. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. God bless y'all. Be safe, and just nothing but the best. See you next time.